In this lecture, we'll write our first servlet. So a servlet is a Java program that runs inside a Java-capable HTTP server, such as Apache Tomcat and few other server like Glassfish. So a web user over here in the browser invokes a servlet by issuing an appropriate URL from a web browser, that is the HTTP client, and then the server, which is in our case is a Tomcat HTTP server, will invoke a servlet. So we'll have here which is over here, which is a servlet, which we will be writing in a few minutes. So before you proceed with this exercise, I shall assume that you are familiar with Java programming and have installed the Java Development Kit or JDK and some of the text editor or IDE like VS Code, Sublime Text, or even you can use a Notepad. So let's look at this diagram, at this illustration. Here we have an HTTP client, which is a browser, and when you request a servlet or anything in the server, you need to use URL. So here we have the hello application, and say hello is an URL that map to the servlet inside your server. So we have here what we call the web servlet annotation, and this is a kind of a mapping, say hello, and it will trigger the hello servlet, which will return some of the text which process inside the server and send back the response to the client. So we will configure such web user that can invoke this servlet by issuing the URL as described. And now let's create a source code called hello servlet.java. Now inside this is your Apache Tomcat directory, which is inside your web apps folder. Here is the application that you have been creating, you have created in the last lecture, which is the hello application. We have a few things here, that is the index.html and the web inf folder. So in the web inf folder, you have one more subdirectory, that is the classes folder, and here is the place where you can create your first servlet. So what I'll do is I'll go to open a terminal and then open a text editor. Probably I can use Sublime and name the source file as hello servlet.java. So this is a Java program, so we need to have an extension .java. So hit enter, and here we have a blank file, nothing in it. So let's start doing the coding. So we need a few imports. So some of the imports, which are the java.io.star, and some of the few imports which I will just copy it from the code. We need this java.servlet.start, everything within this package. Also we need to import this and this code. Now we need to define a class called this is a class, and this is hello servlet. And to make this class a servlet, we need to extend from the HTTP servlet. So we have a class called hello servlet, and this hello servlet extend the HTTP servlet. So this hello servlet now is your Java servlet. There are a few things which you need to override from the HTTP servlet. The first thing is the doGet method. So what is a do-get method? A do-get method is a method where when we invoke, or where a user requests a URL, that is a get request. Now we also need to define the mapping of this servlet. That is, we need to tell the Apache Tomcat that when any URL matching this name or this pattern, let's say this is say hello, if a URL matching this say hello, it will trigger the do-get method. Okay, that is, if a user trigger or send a request, that is a get request. So let's define this public do-get, and we need few things. That is, the first one is HTTP servlet request. This is a request. Let me put it in full, and HTTP respond. And then so we have HTTP request and respond, and there are some exception we need to catch. That is either a input output exception or servlet exception. So you can type this one, IO exception or servlet exception. Now we can, when there is request to the do-get method, we can send back respond, and that respond we need to set the content type. The content type we need to send back HTTP text or HTML, and also we need to have a print writer. Let's say this is out. We will use the object from the respond, from the HTTP servlet respond, and we need to get that object, get writer, and then we can now start writing our HTML code using the print writer. So I'll copy this, I'll paste it over here. So this is so this is the first print line, is printing the doc type. Second is the opening tag of the HTML. Next is the heading part, and then we start with the body and so on. And some few things we'll copy it, and then so this is, we use the request object to retrieve the request URI, which will send back using the response to display what URL it is. This is to demonstrate we can process dynamic information. We can even query database from here and then send back the response to the user. And this is the part info on what protocol it is, and we also retrieve the remote address as well as generating some random number. And finally, we need to close the print writer. So let's save this, and this is the source code of your servlet. Next thing is you need to compile it. To compile it, you need some additional thing to do. Here in the classes file, you have the hello servlet.java. To compile this, you need to use the java, which is Java compiler, and then you need to find the class path, and the class path is in the home directory. And for me, it is we need a servlet API jar to compile this servlet, since we are using the servlet, since we are using we create this for to act as a servlet. And in the workspace, in the Java web programming folder, Apache Tomcat server, lib, and servlet API, and then your source code. So this is how you compile your servlet. But in practice, basically you are using an integrated development environment to do all this compilation behind the hood. You can use netbin, which will compile all your servlet source code into a servlet class. You do not need to worry how to compile this, but for a basic understanding how servlet work, we'll try to compile it from scratch. So when you hit enter, we'll have some problem with this. We have some kind of we have some problem, and that is we are using it as a character, but should be a string. And what else? Let's again recompile it. And okay, this is also a problem. I'm using it as a character, but this is supposed to be a string. And let's redo it. And what invalid method declaration return type required. Okay, so this should be a void method. And let's recompile that. Okay, finally we are done. The output file is the hello servlet.class, which is the compiled program. And next thing is we need to restart our server. To do that, we need to go to the Apache Tomcat directory, list it, go to the bin folder, and shut it down. And then start it. Tomcat start it. Okay, so let's look at the browser, localhost. This is hello, and say hello. So here we have hello world. Request URI is the hello, say hello, and then protocol is HTTP 1.1. The part info, there is no part info after this, so it is null. And remote address is a local host, that is 00, and some random number. So if you are following till here, you successfully deploy your fast servlet in the Apache Tomcat server. Thank you for listening.